Welcome to another edition of Hammersim Battle Reports. My name is Sean, and today I'm bringing you 1200 points of vampire counts versus my friends Dwarves. Now this is a rematch of a game we played a week ago with different army lists. If you'd like to see the previous battle, please check out my channel. This is the way the terrain is set up. We have a house on the left, a standard fence on the top left corner, a hill on the bottom corner, and a couple of mystery forests. This is what deployment looks like after all vanguard moves have been completed. Starting from the top left corner, there's a grudge thrower with a rune of accuracy, a bolt thrower with a rune of accuracy and a rune of penetration, 25 warriors, 3 characters inside that unit, a BSB Thane, a Thane General and a Rune Lord, and then another grudge thrower with a rune of accuracy and a rune of forging. As for my army, I've got 4 units of direwolves, 5 strong each, no champion. I have a Khan Wraith there, by himself, just a character. I have 20 zombies, musician standard, another 20 zombies, musician standard. Inside this zombie unit, I have my general, who is a level 3 necromancer. I have a level 2 necromancer hero. Next to them, I have a 10 strong crypt horror unit that's got a champion, and then another Khan Wraith character by himself. On my general, I have the Black Periapt, which allows me to store up to 2 power dice or 2 dispel dice per magic phase. I have also got a Talisman of Protection, which gives me a 4+ ward save. My Necromancer hero is holding the Book of Arcan. I just want to take a minute quickly to explain my deployment and why my forces are so spread out. I had won the deployment role and chose to put my zombie unit too close to the middle of the board there. I chose this side of the board to deny my opponent the use of the hill, and as any experienced player knows, giving dwarves a hill is never a good idea. What I didn't know was my opponent ended up splitting his forces with a couple of war machines on one side and his warriors and a war machine on the other. So by the time he dropped his war machines, I had committed a couple of my direwolf units, number 4 and number 3, to the same side as his grudge thrower and bolt thrower. But when he dropped his warrior unit down on the complete opposite side of the map, I ended up deciding that I would field the rest of my infantry there to take on the warriors. So unfortunately, this made it so my Khan Wraith and my zombie unit number 2 on the left flank doesn't have general support, which means they can't march for the entire game. This does slow me down, and yeah, you'll see what happens. Dwarves ended up winning first turn, and unsurprisingly he aims both grudge throwers at my general's unit and the bolt thrower at the side of the direwolf unit. Now grudge thrower number 2 is outside of 60-inch range to my general's model. However, the top corner of the zombie unit is within 60 inches, so he's placed the center of the template on that corner, and so it still ends up covering my general. But if my general does fail look out sir roll, he will be hit with a lesser strength hit. Unfortunately for my opponent, even though he had runes of accuracy on all his war machines, he ended up missing every single shot in this turn. The grudge thrower ended up scattering wide, and the bolt thrower missed the direwolves. During my turn 1 on my left flank, I move up my units as quickly as possible. I really need to get into close combat with those war machines so they stop throwing rocks and bolts at my general's unit. You can see there that the Khan Wraith and the zombies don't move up very quickly, but the direwolves should be able to charge next turn. On my right hand side, I move up all the units up fairly quickly as well. I do take care with the direwolf unit so that they won't be charged by the warriors next turn. However, direwolf unit number 1 should be in range to charge the grudge thrower next turn. I also move my zombie unit away from the left flank, just so that the grudge thrower on the left that he has there won't be able to shoot at me next turn. During my opponent's turn 2, he just shifts the warriors up slightly to phase my direwolves a little bit better. In his shooting phase, he aims the first grudge thrower at my general again, and he rolls 2 misfires in a row with the rune of forging, and then rolls a 1 on the d6, ends up blowing himself up. Very unfortunate for him. The bolt thrower ends up hitting the direwolf unit number 2 on the side, but only does 1 wound. Not only that, his second grudge thrower also misses his target. I can't remember which unit he was shooting at, but all in all, that was another terrible shooting phase for my opponent. Making the most of my good fortune so far, I end up getting the charges off in the left flank against both his war machines. Now, I don't think my direwolves will probably beat his dwarves, but at least now they're not shooting at me. So I moved my Direwolf number 2 away from the main combat towards the other war machines. This is just so that when eventually Direwolf 3 and 4 die, Direwolf 2 is there to back them up. I push up my Crypt Horror unit also to within 13.5 inches of his warriors. The reason behind that is I figure 13.5 is quite a distance for a Dwarven unit to charge, but it's just close enough to tempt him into attempting the roll. And odds are he should fail that roll, and in the subsequent turn I should be able to make my charge without worrying about failing. So against his grudge throwers in close combat, I ended up killing one dwarf. He ends up killing 2 wolves back, so we're even in combat there because I got the +1 from the charge. Against the bolt thrower, I end up missing all my attacks, but he fails to wound me as well, so I end up winning combat there by 1 due to the charging bonus, and he passes the leadership without an issue though. On to Dwarven turn 3, he declares the charge as I expected him to, and he did fail the roll. He moves forward 5 inches, so I should be able to countercharge him next turn without issue. In the close combat against his war machines on the left flank, his units only managed to do 1 wound against each of my Direwolf units, so with combat resolution in mind, they pop another wolf in each of the combats, but my wolves are still there tying up his war machines, so I'm fairly happy with that so far. So in my turn 3, I get my charge off on the warriors without an issue with the Crypt Horrors. With the other units, my Khan Wraith on the left flank moves up next to the house there, and he should be within charging range with of the bolt thrower with a good roll. The zombie unit 2 is slowly ambling towards there, but I don't think they're going to be able to get there in enough time to help. I also move my Khan Wraith on the right hand side and the Direwolf unit number 1 to the flank of the warrior unit. I haven't decided whether I will charge in or not because he is holding an Oathstone, so by charging in I'm not negating flanks. It could possibly just backfire and give him lots of combat resolution because the Direwolves are fairly easy to kill. Here's a close-up view of the hand-to-hand combat between my Crypt Horrors against his warriors. I declared a challenge with my Crypt Horror champion. His general had no choice but to accept because he was holding an Oathstone. In the challenge, we do a wound to each other, so neither of us die, but his general is a Thane, which only has 2 hit points, so he's on half health already. His unit ends up doing a couple of wounds to mine, and I kill 3 dwarves, I think. And however, even though I'm winning on wounds, he does end up winning combat because he's got both a BSB as well as a standard, and I think he had an additional rank bonus on me as well. In the hand-to-hand combat on the other side of the map, both my wolf units die due to combat resolution, so his war machines are free to fire at me the following turn. One thing I forgot to mention is during my magic phases so far, my opponent's been very good about dispelling almost every single spell I try to cast. With his Rune of Balancing has been quite effective because I've been rolling very poorly on Winds of Magic, and he's always had equal or sometimes even more dice than me. And I managed to get a couple of evocations off, that's about it. So the only thing that's changed is my zombie unit number 1 is quite a bit larger than when they started. I believe they're about 40 or 50 strong now. During Dwarven turn 4, he aims the grudge thrower at my general yet again. He does land a hit this time, but I pass my Lookout Sir roll and don't take any damage. A couple of zombies are killed, but that's fine. His bolt thrower ends up targeting the Khan Wraith, but I can't remember whether he missed or he couldn't wound. I think he missed. I got to be careful there because with the runes on those war machines, they can't hit ethereal targets, so I need to get my Khan Wraith into combat ASAP. In hand-to-hand combat, in the challenge, my champion ends up killing his Dwarven general, which I was very happy about. However, his unit does score quite a few wounds back on my unit. I think they end up killing 2 models and putting another one on 1 wound left. During my turn 4, I end up charging the bolt thrower with my Khan Wraith. I do a very good roll on the charge and make it in there without issue. I also move my general and necromancer out of the zombie unit. I just don't want them to be shot at by the grudge thrower again, and right now they're outside of the range of the grudge thrower, so I'm fairly happy about that. I've also spaced them out enough so that if I miscast, hopefully the round template won't hit both casters. During the magic phase, I end up getting a couple of invocations off, which brought the Crypt Horror unit back up to 9 models strong. but those new models are immediately killed in hand-to-hand combat from both wounds taken as well as stability test. I did do 6 wounds to his dwarves, but he still ended up winning combat due to the fact that he had a BSB and a standard bearer, whereas I'm just fighting with a champion. Also, I declared another challenge with my champion, and he accepted with his BSB. His BSB with the 1+ armor save was just impossible to wound, and yeah, he put a couple of wounds back onto my champion. And on the other side of the map, my Khan Wraith ends up killing the crew of the bolt thrower without any issues, and they couldn't fight back because he is ethereal. During Dwarven turn 5, not much really happens. He shoots at me with a rock clobber. I can't remember which unit he targets, but either he didn't do a lot of wounds or he failed to hit because I didn't even note it down. But in hand-to-hand combat, it's just another grind. I kill a couple of warriors, he kills a couple of crypt horrors. He keeps winning on combat resolution because of the BSB and the standard he's got. But my horrors are going strong there, and I'm hoping to be able to raise a few of them during the next casting phase. In my turn, I get the charge onto the last of his war machines with my Khan Wraith easily. I move my zombie and direwolf units closer to that end, but I think my Khan Wraith should be able to take care of it. All of my other units stay put. Now, you may be wondering why I didn't charge in with the rest of my units. It's because my Khan Wraith have been pretty much constantly losing combat by a couple, and I didn't want to risk charging in my Khan Wraith and the direwolf there because I'm worried that he's just going to be able to pop them without any issues. During the magic phase, my opponent again is able to nullify pretty much all the spells that I had. I think I did get 1 evocation off, so I brought back 1 model and a couple of wounds, and I might have got a bounce spell off, so they've got rerolls to hit. But yeah, he's been very good at keeping my invocations at bay. In hand-to-hand combat, it's the same grind that happened last turn. His warriors do a few wounds to me, I do a few wounds to him, but he ends up winning because of the BSB and standard that he has, so I cop a few more wounds due to combat resolution. My Khan Wraith up the flank there is able to kill the last of his war machines without any troubles. In Dwarven turn 6, my opponent's got nothing left on the board except for the warrior unit with his characters inside, so I'll just skip straight ahead to combat. My opponent ends up rolling really well for this combat round. He kills 2 crypt horrors outright, and with the combat resolution he pops another one, and the 2 models that are left are my champion, which is already suffered 2 wounds, and 1 more model which now is on 1 wound left as well. I do manage to kill a good number of warriors back though, so he's down to 4 warriors in his unit and his BSB and Rune Lord. And onto my turn 6, the last turn of the game. I don't declare any charges, which in hindsight may have been a mistake. In my magic phase, I again roll extremely poor on my Winds of Magic. This has been the consistent theme throughout this whole game, and even with my Black Preapt, which is giving me 2 extra power dice, I only end up with 7. My opponent has, I think from memory, 4 dispel dice, and so I'm feeling fairly confident with this magic phase despite the low number of dice I have. So I used 2 out of my 7 dice to put Van Hells on my crypt horrors. I'm thinking this is going to be a free cast because my opponent's going to save all of his dice for my invocation, so I might as well give them rerolls to hit for now. And then I attempt to use 3 dice on my general to do the lowest level invocation on the heck. I only need a 6 to get it to cast. I end up rolling 3 1s on these 3 dice, which means that I just got my 6. Unfortunately, my opponent was easily able to dispel that using 2 dice. Not to worry, I thought I have another caster with invocation, so I'll just use the last 2 dice with him. What happens? I roll Snake Eyes, so I don't even get that spell off. Now my crypt horrors have 1 wound on each model left, and in close combat those 2 wounds are quickly taken away by his BSB and the remaining warriors. I do 1 wound back to him, and that's pretty much how the game ended. So here's the map. As you can see, the board's pretty much wiped of dwarves except for that last remaining unit. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to claim the points for that, and this is how the victory points broke down in the end. I believe I scored about 570 points because I'm not 100% sure on how much that thing cost, the general, and he scored definitely 470 points of me, so it's either a minor victory to me or a draw. That's what's frustrating about this game, because in 6th edition, if you killed more than half the unit, you've claimed half the unit's points, but in 8th edition you have to kill the whole unit or it has to flee off the board for you to claim the victory points. So even though I've left him with I think 5 models left on the board, and he himself admitted that it felt like a loss, not a draw, yeah, I couldn't get a lot of the points because of that one unit. Now, some thoughts about the game after the fact. His misfires and just general poor shooting in the first 2 Dwarven turns really cost him a lot there, because pretty much my whole army was able to get to his intact, which shouldn't happen against Dwarves. He actually did a very good job of spreading out my army. Half my army didn't have the general close by, so they were slowly moving forward and wasn't able to march. But I also thought that might have been a weakness of his deployment because he couldn't defend the other 2 war machines. So pretty much at the beginning of the game, I saw that I was definitely going to get the war machines one way or the other. But yeah, I think that was due to the fact that I took the side with a hill away from my opponent, so he definitely was at a loss to how best to field his army. I'm not so sure whether next time he will be fielding it so wide open. I really found the Black Pre-app to be helpful in this game, particularly because I was rolling so low on my Winds of Magic. Having those extra 2 dice every casting phase was just a really big help. Otherwise I would have been casting with 4 or 5 dice pretty much every time. So in terms of my mistake, which I think ended up costing me a lot of points in this game, I should have charged his Dwarven unit straight after his general died. That was my big mistake, I believe, because his general was the one with the Oathstone. And I had forgotten that. I don't know what was going on in my head, but once his general died, I could negate his rank bonus as well as him not being able to parry along his flank or rear, so I should have moved my direwolves directly behind him, charged in with my Khan Wraith on the flank and then the direwolves in the rear. Part of that issue is the fact that my opponent didn't have an Oathstone model to use, so when he told me that his general had an Oathstone in his possession, I just made a mental note about the unit, thinking, okay, I can't charge that thing from the flank or the rear, or at least if I did so, I'm not going to get much in the way of bonuses. And even after his general had died, I still had that mental note about that unit, so I really need to pay more attention to, you know, who's holding what and what's going on in the game. It's not my opponent's fault that he didn't have a figure. I should have really made a bigger effort to remember what's going on. Oh well, you live, you learn. Yeah. So what did you guys think of the game? Did you have any issues with how we played it? Were some rule interpretations or things that we might have forgotten? How would you have deployed if you had the chance? Let us know in the comments. We'll be happy to hear your feedback. And yeah, I'm Sean from Hammersim. See you on the next video.